on the basis of the data obtained through the external senses. He says, why I cannot base a metaphysics on the basis of the data, on the basis of the cognitions, we can say, or knowledges gained through the internal senses. So they have the external observatory. They observed, anyway, the stars. They looked and observed the stars, and then they theorize, and then they philosophize the motions and why they are in motions, whether they are natural in motions, whether someone set them in motions, whether they have, anyway, kicked them, so on, something like that. They came to the conclusion that so there must be unmoved mover. So these are the external senses and external knowledge, and which constitute the basis and the foundations of the metaphysics. And Sohrawardi says in his part, he says, I emphasize and I apply myself to the internal senses. So these internal senses also can be cognitive, can give me some cognitions and knowledge. So these knowledge can be basis, can be a foundation for a new metaphysics. So that is why he called his metaphysics a metaphysics of light. Before him, it was a metaphysics of being. But he says a metaphysics of light. And what was this light? These lights witness, of course, he says, you might raise an objection that how can we come to understand, how can we come to contact with these lights? He says, of course, those who have not spiritually exercised, those who have not undergone spiritual exercises might not be able to understand the metaphysics of light. And these are, in a way, somehow we can say these metaphysics is deeply connected with the what we may call the religious experiences. So, as rationality can be based or can be, in a way, developed on the basis of the external senses, as it can be developed on the mind and mental capacities and reasons, it can be also developed on the internal senses or intuitions or any deeper than that. That is the revelations. As Ayatollah Arafi also somehow, he had some glimpse, some alluded to this idea in his speech. So I would like to emphasize on the different layers and different levels of rationality. But these layers have different nature and I think different standards for evaluations. So, in brief, in this part of my lecture, there is we can say, correspondence with. If the reality is made up of different levels, so rationality corresponding to it can be developed or can be anyways worked out in different levels. So each level of rationality corresponding a particular level of reality. If some part of reality, which is the core of reality, is incorporeal, immaterial, so understanding and encountering that incorporeal being cannot be actualized through other apparatus, through other means. So we have different means for different levels. We have different sorts of rationality corresponding to different sorts of being. If somebody could anyway prove or somehow could show, instead of prove, I should say show, if somebody somehow could show and convince others that there are different lights, so the reality is composed of different lights, and light of lights, and dominant lights, and sapiential lights, and so on, again, we would have, and we can have, a illuminationist or oriental metaphysics, or we can say oriental rationality. So in this way, I think this is, of course, not my idea. This is a somehow very maybe clear idea, but I would like to emphasize on it, because sometimes people try to extend the standards of a particular kind of rationality to other types of rationality. But if we say different levels demands different sorts of rationality, so each rationality should be evaluated and assessed in its own or according to its own standards and sources. Yeah, please.
My question is a little bit strange, but I think it will help our discussion. What about the position of intellect toward the divine madness? You know, Aflaton, Plato, says in his dialogues that after all, we must reach to the level of appreciating the reality as eternal connection between an eternal, how can I say, pursuit of the divine beauty, which is the source of the divine love. And in his opinion, in this eternal pursuit of divine beauty and divine love, this is the reason for the divine madness. So, if it is true, and in my opinion, it's very true, because all the reality, all our life is on the base of this truth. All of us see that in the real life we are in pursuit of this in our intuition, in all our deeds. We have this eternal inner dimension, divine beauty and divine love. So Plato says that the divine madness, we must reach to this level. So my question is, what about the reason and intellect and the divine madness?
Divine passion, you mean?
Divine madness.
Madness.
And junun Elohi.
It's very, very passionate love, you mean?
Yes. Ashq. You know that in Irfan we have this as a very, very, very important to reach the real appreciation of the reality. Because after all, you know that when we speak about intellect or something like that, we must reach to the topic of the happiness. What is the happiness about the man? What is the happiness of life? After all, what is the reason for all this?
In fact, I wouldn't want to say that reason or intellect is the only and single source for understanding reality and encountering reality. We know that on discussing the limitations or anyway domains and realms of reason and intellect. In that discussions, we are going to emphasize on the fact that some realities cannot be grasped somehow, cannot be realized by the tools of reasons. And in that case, we might say that the love and means the deeper layer or deeper dimensions of human being can play a crucial role in that case. But for the beginning, at the beginning, because somehow we are concerned about the truth. In fact, in discussing the ordinary and conventional love, sometimes, if I am in love, if I have some passionate love, it does not necessarily mean that the object my love is real. Somebody might be in love of someone, but because he envisages actually the reality in light of his own experiences, in light of his own concerns, somehow I want to say that maybe his beloved is not real. He's suffering from projecting. It means what he has in depth of his heart, what is not real, has no instance in reality. He materialized it and he was in love. He is in love of it. Because we want not to be in such danger, he would not, at the beginning, we want to have a solid ground and a cornerstone, actually, at the beginning. I want to emphasize on the fact that the reason at the beginning is the exclusive, and the single source. Rationality is the single and exclusive source, or let us say, is the single common logic for discussions. Because if you speak of love, if I don't have any experience of love, I cannot understand what you are talking about. I cannot come to the content of or the object of your love. But rationality, because it uses the concepts, it uses the notions. So by using concepts, I cannot get across, I can get myself understood, I can convey the message to other people. So no problem. We can confess that the love also can make drastic change in the reason. But for those who have undergone a type of love, a deep love, who experience that, until someone experiences, he can understand the content of that love and so on. And also, as I said, because the danger of being involved and engaged in something unreal, we should give much importance and in a very crucial role to the reason and reality to make sure that what we are talking about and what we are in a way conceiving and discussing is real in reality. But if we are going only to emphasize on love, we cannot be sure. Of course, I do not ignore, I do not deny. I want to say that some type of reality only can be grasped or can be gained, can be, let us say, realized only through the love. through feelings. For example, I would say that I wanted actually to emphasize on that point that some people develop the metaphysics or the rationality in terms of feeling. I mean, the feeling of dependence of what? Of mysterious being. Dependence of mysterious being. This is a kind of feeling. So what you also, I think, are talking about is another type of feeling. It's very passionate and exciting feeling that anyway that excite people, that persuade people, set people to work, and so on. I don't know whether I could answer your questions or not.
Thank you very much for your answer. I think after that we can continue with, but after all, you know that some great mystics like Maulana Rumi and for example, or Ibn Arabi, even Mullah Sadra says that after all, the existence, the reality, we couldn't say that it's necessity or possible. يعني الوجود لا واجب ليس واجبا ولا ممكن يعني لا يمكن القول. يعني we can't say that.
مولانا says ای برون از وهم و قیل و قول من خاک بر فرق من و تمثیل من. Maulana says that
it means that we can have really experience shuhud or something like that. The fire of the divine love we can have this real experience which can change our perspective, our understanding of the reality. Because after all, you know that in the Islamic tradition has said that all of us are in a state of sleep. An-nasu niyamun. And all of us are in a state of sleeping. But we must wake up from this sleep. And one of the best ways of this waking up from this sleep is the way of love.
Yes. As I read the poem by Maulana, when discussing God, actually, we have different ayats. We have some ayats and different ahadith, which emphasize on the fact that human beings cannot know God as He is. وَمَا قَدْرُ اللَّهِ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. Because we are finite, God is infinite, so knowledge means encompassing. If we are limited, we cannot encompass unlimited and infinite reality. This is, logically speaking, is very clear, I think. But what about whether because God is infinite and we are finite and we cannot encompass, we should take an agnostic, for example, approach and we know nothing of it? Or atheistic? No. So what is the case? What is the ground actually that motivates us to understand somehow the nature of God, somehow the characteristic of God? I think, but this is, of course, I refer to a point, but if you are interested, I can elaborate it. I think because we have power, because we experience ourselves in the depth of our existence, we experience power, and we know what power is. Power is capability that can have some